Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, respected Director General of the IISS, respected Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. My name is Aisha bint Tawhid. I am a research officer at this institute. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, BIISS, I welcome you all to today's seminar on celebrating 50 years of Bangladesh-Nepal friendship, shared vision of peace, progress, and prosperity. Today, we are very much honored to have amongst us His Excellency, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen MP, Honorable Foreign Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh as the Chief Guest. Respected audience, today's session will begin with a welcome address by Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General BIISS. This will be followed by remarks from His Excellency, Mr. Ghanshyam Bhandari, Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh. Next, there will be two presentations from two distinguished panelists and then an open discussion session. Finally, the Honorable Chief Guest of today's seminar will deliver his valuable speech. May I now request Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General BIISS, to kindly commence the seminar with his welcome address. Sir.
Thank you, Aisha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen MP, Honorable Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, His Excellency Mr. Ghanshyam Bhandari, Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams, Rector, Foreign Service Academy, Bangladesh, Dr. Sharnim Wagle, Chair, the Institute of Integrated Development Studies, Kathmandu, Nepal, Excellencies, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. On behalf of the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, let me welcome you all to today's seminar on celebrating 50 years of Bangladesh-Nepal friendship, shared vision of peace, progress, and prosperity. I express my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen MP, for gracing the occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the month associated with the momentous 7th March speech, birth of our Father of the Nation, and our Independence Day. So at the outset, in this historic month of March, I would like to pay my solemn reverence to the memory of the Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and millions of martyrs who made the supreme sacrifice during every struggle of our national emancipation and war of liberation in 1971. August gathering. Bangladesh and Nepal just have celebrated their 50 years of diplomatic relationship. Since the establishment of the diplomatic ties on 8th April 1972, the two countries have been enjoying excellent bilateral ties and they have supported each other on various global and regional platforms. Here, Bangladesh always acknowledges the support of Nepal's political leadership during the War of Liberation in 1971. Nepal was the 7th country to recognize Bangladesh immediately after our independence. Since then, the bilateral relationship between the two nations has grown on relative fields like trade and economic cooperation, connectivity, and people-to-people connections. Geographically, the proximity between the two countries has also cemented our bilateral ties. Borders between the countries are separated by only 22 kilometers of Indian territory, known as Siliguri Corridor, which separates northern Bangladesh and southern Nepal. This geographic proximity, together with the similarity in culture, traditions, and values, explain their deep-rooted friendship, growing people-to-people contact, and cementing ties. The two lands have been nurtured by wisdom and insights of great saints and philosophers. Therefore, those common aspects are also bringing the two countries spiritually, culturally, and emotionally closer. Distinguished participants, the rich natural and human resources is the source of power in transforming the development landscape, creating prosperity and happiness for the common people of both the countries. As Bangladesh is envisioning to be a prosperous nation by 2041, while Nepal plans to be a high-income country by 2043. Therefore, both countries' mutual support and cooperation on a range of issues of shared interest are vivid. Dear audience, economic cooperation is one of the important aspects of bilateral relationship between the two countries. And in 1978, the two countries established a Joint Economic Forum or Joint Economic Commission, JEC, at the Finance Ministry level to enhance bilateral trade and investment. Earlier, in April 1976, the two countries signed 4 agreements to foster trade, transportation, civil aviation, and technical cooperation. Besides, in July 2012, Foreign Office consultation mechanism was initiated at the Foreign Secretary level to discuss and review bilateral trade and investments. The growing trend of trade between the two countries depicts the growing strength of economic cooperation between the two countries. In the last 2 decades, Nepal's export to Bangladesh grew at an annual rate of more than 13%, while Bangladesh's export to Nepal increased by 17%. In financial year 2021-22, export from Bangladesh to Nepal was $105.5 million, while import from Nepal to Bangladesh was $5.6 million. Bangladesh's main export items to Nepal includes residues and waste from the food industry, grains, seeds, fruit, and industrial and medicinal plants, electrical machinery and equipment, pharmaceutical products, textiles and clothing items, and jute. The main imported items are vegetable products, fruits, prepared foodstuffs, animal products, and mechanical appliances and electrical equipment. Connectivity, transit, and corridor between the two countries facilitated this increasing trend of trade significantly. Both the countries started their official trade relations in September 1997 through the Kakorvita, Fulbari, Banglaband transit route. Moreover, Bangladesh is allowing access to Nepal to use the Mongla port for its third country trade and also providing rail corridor transit via Rohanpur, Singapore for promoting easy and cost-effective bilateral trade. The launching of Podda Multipurpose Bridge has opened a new horizon for enhanced sub-regional connectivity and economic cooperation between the two countries and beyond. However, comparing the enormous prospects, economic relations between the two nations remain insignificant. There is an immense scope of expanding trade relationship through fostering complementaries, eliminating tariff and non-tariff barriers, improving infrastructure, expanding connectivity, and exploring new sectors of trade and investments. Also, private sector and business community from both the countries should come forward and engage more steadily. Besides, enhanced connectivity over the land, air, and sea can unleash economic growth potentials between the two countries. Ladies and gentlemen, since Bangladesh's economy is growing fast and experiencing rapid industrialization, additional supply of energy is very crucial. Here, energy cooperation could play a catalytic role for mutual benefits. Energy is one of the most important areas of collaboration between Bangladesh and Nepal. According to the 15th five-year development plan of Nepal, which runs from 2019 to 2024, the country is going to increase its electricity generation to more than 5,000 megawatts, making it an energy surplus country. Bangladesh should focus on exploring opportunity to make investments, generate and import surplus energy from Nepal. Bangladesh is working with both India and Nepal for trilateral cooperation on energy supply. Dear participants, tourism is another important sector for bilateral cooperation. Both the countries have huge potential in the travel, tourism, and hospitality sector. Bangladesh, with the world's longest sea beach of Cox's Bazar in her lap, the biggest mangrove forest of Sundarbans at its heart, and the exclusive beauty of the riverine landscape could be the best destination for Nepali tourists. Similarly, Nepal, being the daughter of Himalayas, majestic snow-capped mountains, nice biodiversity, etc., offer an attractive destination for Bangladeshi tourists. Hence, to reap more benefits from the tourism sector, both the countries need to work on seamless land and air connectivity, enhance people-to-people contact, cultural exchange like exchange of music and sports, etc. Here it needs to be mentioned that exchange of education sector is quite impressive between the two countries. Every year, a good number of Nepalese students are enrolled for studying medicine, nursing, dentistry, engineering, agriculture, and other courses in various institutions of Bangladesh. Bangladeshi students, on the other hand, are choosing Nepal to pursue higher studies in the fine arts and development studies, among others. However, accreditation of each other's university degrees and affiliation of more colleges and universities in the future will open up newer vistas of opportunity of cooperation in the education sector. Distinguished guests, Bangladesh and Nepal have enormous scope to work and enhance cooperation under the sub-regional and regional platforms. We all know that Bangladesh and Nepal are active members in sub-regional groupings like BIMSTEC, BBIN, etc. Moreover, both countries are among the largest contributors to the United Nations peacekeeping operations. Those platforms of working together provide scope for creating synergies and foster bilateral relations further. Again, climate change is another important area of cooperation between the two countries. Both the countries can cooperate in climate adaptation and mitigation and share knowledge and training. They can work together and raise common voice for climate justice and for climate fund from the developed countries. Ladies and gentlemen, though Bangladesh and Nepal are geographically close and both of them are the members of SAARC, BIMSTEC, BBIN, etc., they have not been able to translate their bilateral ties to mutually beneficial economic relations to the fullest. There is a vast scope of cooperation in areas like trade, investment, connectivity, energy cooperation, education, tourism, etc. Since they do not share borders with each other, sub-regional platforms could be a crucial option to work for common interests in South Asia. They need to emphasize on connectivity, linking the waterways in Bangladesh, India, and Nepal would substantially improve connectivity and reduce the cost of transportation and trade. BBIN motor vehicle agreement should be implemented to foster transport connectivity. After all, to take the bilateral relationship forward and enhance cooperation, the two countries should review the last 5 decades of their journey and articulate active policies in the field of trade, hydropower, and energy cooperation, infrastructure development, and more. Dear audience, we will learn from our today's learned speakers, and I hope from today's discussions, we will be able to come up with further guidelines to enhance our bilateral ties. Finally, again, I express my gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen MP, His Excellency Mr. Ghansham Bhandari, distinguished speakers, media representatives, and the learned audience for encouraging us with your kind participation. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, respected Director General, sir. Now I would like to request His Excellency Mr. Ghansham Bhandari, Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, to kindly deliver his remarks. His Excellency, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Foreign Minister, the chief guest of today's event, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, Rector of Foreign Service Academy, Her Excellency Musfi Binte Sams, Director General of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, Chair of the Institute for Integrated Development Studies and former Vice Chairman of National Planning Commission of Nepal, Dr. Swarnim Wagle, Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends from media, and ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon. At the outset, I join the Director General of this institute in welcoming you all to this seminar organized to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of Nepal-Bangladesh relationship. My sincere thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and this institute for joining hands with the embassy in putting this event together. I express my deepest gratitude to Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, for taking his time to grace this seminar as the chief guest. We are honored to have you here, Your Excellency, as we deliberate on our 50-year journey of friendship and cooperation. I'm equally grateful to Ambassador Musfi Binte Sams and Dr. Swarnim Wagle for agreeing to speak on the theme today. Given Ambassador Binte Sams' 7-year-long stint in Nepal as Bangladesh ambassador, and Dr. Wagle's experiences of working as the Vice Chairman of National Planning Commission, followed by Chief Economic Advisor to UNDP, and their knowledge and expertise in national, sub-regional, and regional issues, there could be no better presenters on the theme of this seminar. Excellencies and distinguished guests, the history of Nepal-Bangladesh relations can be traced back to times predating Bangladesh's liberation war. Even in those times, our societies and communities were interlinked through profound historical and cultural linkages. The relationship between our two countries is as organic as the link between majestic Himalayas, the water towers, and the Bay of Bengal, the water reservoir. It is as natural as the ever-flowing rivers between them. It is said that the Himalayas are the pulse of the planet. Everything that happens there reverberates across the region and beyond. Since the establishment of formal diplomatic ties on 8th of April 1972, Nepal-Bangladesh friendship has flourished in all areas on the principles of cooperation, trust, and mutual respect. Regular exchanges of high-level visits and bilateral engagements have significantly contributed to strengthening of our bilateral relations. The economic and commercial ties between our two countries have been growing steadily. Strong links at the cultural and linguistic levels continue to foster respect and mutual understanding between our societies and peoples. Bangladesh is one of the preferred destinations for Nepali students to pursue higher education, especially in the medical field. Currently, about 3,000 Nepali students are studying at various universities and colleges across Bangladesh. Together, Nepal and Bangladesh have weathered many challenges and stood by each other in times of needs, including in the fight during the COVID-19 pandemic. As a close and friendly neighbor, Nepal is happy to witness the phenomenal economic progress achieved by Bangladesh under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Nepal-Bangladesh collaboration also extends to regional and multilateral forums such as SAARC, BIMSTEC, United Nations, Non-Aligned Movement, and Group of 77 and China, among others. Our two countries share a common commitment to the values of global peace, progress, and prosperity. Currently, the first two largest troops and police contributing countries to UN peacekeeping, Bangladesh and Nepal, continue to contribute to the noble cause of peace and security. Excellencies, as we look forward to the next 50 years and beyond, there is a need to diversify the areas of cooperation. The bilateral trade between Nepal and Bangladesh is increasing, but we are yet to tap the full potential. We must intensify our efforts to enhance our economic linkages. I take this opportunity to thank the government of Bangladesh for reopening, after almost 2 decades, the import of all types of Nepali yarn to Bangladesh via Banglabandha Land Custom Station in December 2022. On investment, it is encouraging to note that Nepali and Bangladeshi investors have collaborated to invest in some joint venture projects. The signing of the double taxation avoidance agreement in 2019 has opened avenues for further expansion of trade and investment opportunities. Nepal's hydropower potential and Bangladesh's increasing energy needs provide ample opportunities for energy cooperation. The recent developments in energy sector are encouraging. We are effortful to ensure the import of power from Nepal to Bangladesh and realize the prospects of this win-win energy cooperation. If materialized, this will be a much needed springboard to take our bilateral relationship, in fact, the sub-regional cooperation, into the next level. Connectivity is a lifeline for sustainable economic partnership and for greater people-to-people linkages. Currently, 2 airlines, Biman Bangladesh and Himalaya Airlines, are operating 11 direct flights per week, connecting our two capitals, Kathmandu and Dhaka. Enhanced connectivity, including through roads, railways, waterways, and transmission lines, will be critical to further materialize the prospects of economic partnership. Talking about connectivity, the negotiations on the movement of cargo and passenger vehicles under BBIN framework are moving progressively. As just highlighted by the Director General Habibuddin, successful conclusion of the negotiations by addressing each other's concerns, if any, will be a significant milestone towards achieving seamless connectivity in the sub-region. Tourism is yet another sector which offers a great deal of potential for both countries. Over 25,000 Bangladeshi tourists visited Nepal in 2022, which is close to the pre-pandemic level. Our two countries offer unique and diverse touristic products, such as Nepal's majestic mountains, verdant valleys, and historical and archaeological sites, and Bangladesh's fertile lands, exquisite sea beaches, captivating mangrove forests, and cultural and historical sites. Having said this, however, there's a need to connect our religious and archaeological sites and eco-tourism and adventure destinations through tourism circuits in order to build stronger bonds between our peoples. Finally, just like the two schoolmates of development, Nepal and Bangladesh have similar opportunities and challenges in terms of their socio-economic development aspirations. We are both set to graduate from the least developed country category by 2026. Graduation is a long-held aspiration for both of our countries. However, the pandemic and the ramifications of geopolitical crisis have further accentuated our challenges in this regard. But we must work together and push against this pushback to ensure a smooth, sustainable, and irreversible graduation. It is important that we share our experiences, lessons learned, and best practices, including during the current preparatory period. This will be instrumental in attaining our shared vision of peace, progress, and prosperity. To conclude, an anniversary is not just an occasion to take stock of the achievements and celebrate. It is also an occasion to reflect on the possibilities and plan better for the future. I hope the 50th anniversary of Nepal-Bangladesh relationship becomes a watershed moment, inspiring us to work collaboratively and igniting action for more robust partnership. I would like to once again express my sincere gratitude to Honorable Foreign Minister and all the esteemed speakers and the guests for your valuable time and presence and your contributions to this seminar. I thank you for your attention. Long live Nepal-Bangladesh relationship. Nepal-Bangladesh Samparka Chiranjeevi Hoka. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your insightful words. May I now request Dr. Swarnim Wagle, Chair, the Institute of Integrated Development Studies, IIDS, Kathmandu, Nepal, to present on his topic. Dr. Wagle, please.
The Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, Major General Habib Uddin, Ambassador Ghanshyam Bhandari, and Ambassador Masfi Binte Shams, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to speak here today on this special occasion. And as a student of development economics, it's been a real privilege to watch the agenda of mass social advancement that has been pioneered here in Bangladesh and which has now nicely dovetailed and is propelling the economic rise of Bangladesh. I think when the economic textbooks will be written in the future, this story of social progress predating or setting the stage for economic rise of developing countries, I think Bangladesh will feature on the forefront. The story is, of course, very inspirational. Aspects of your rise to many lagging South Asian countries and LDCs, least developed countries like Nepal. It's also a pleasure to acknowledge, as the ambassador has just done, the wonderful relationship that exists between Bangladesh and Nepal. We were one of the earliest countries to recognize Bangladesh in 1972, and the challenge and duty of our generation of citizens is to build on this beautiful legacy, to imagine a shared future of peace and prosperity. Now, General Habibuddin and Ambassador Bhandari have already covered many issues, so they've made my job easier as well as harder. But let me try and focus on a few issues that I think they are not novel in the sense that you haven't heard these before, but need to be reinforced and perhaps reorient aspects of our partnership along those lines. But the central question, as I was flying into Dhaka yesterday, I was thinking, in the COVID context, we're talking about a development strategy that is China +1, right? When you focus, when you invest, when you trade just with a narrow set of countries at an extraordinary time like the COVID pandemic or many unforeseen, unpredictable crises in the future, there are risks. And so similar to that, drawing on that analogy, I was thinking, what would it take for Nepal and Bangladesh to become each other's +1, right? And to be more specific in the South Asian context, India +1. So India is exceptionally important to Bangladesh as a neighbor, as a regional power. India remains exceptionally important to Nepal. But India +1 strategy for Nepal and India +1 strategy for Bangladesh, I think there's a space that we need to carve for each other. And therein lies tapping all the latent potentials that the two distinguished speakers have already talked about. I've been coming and going from Bangladesh since 2003, a lot of the LDC related conferences, my own work as a trade economist in the 2000s related to the WTO rounds, etc. Very vibrant discussions that used to happen. Bangladesh used to host of relevance to all the LDCs and the lagging South Asian countries. So a theme that I think remains a low-hanging fruit is indeed sub-regional trade and development cooperation through bilateral, the BBIN architecture that we are building, and the regional, well-established regional organizations like SAARC, as well as BIMSTEC. There's a certain, when you talk about India as a regional power, there is the obvious asymmetry. A lot of these smaller neighbors get very anxious when you take India as a complete bloc. What appealed to me when BBIN came into vogue in the development discourse is it set the stage for greater symmetry and reciprocity with the economic subunit of northeast of India as the linchpin. So Bhutan, Nepal, the northeast plus West Bengal and the state of Bangladesh, there's a certain symmetry that one can expect, which the overwhelming overall entirety of the Indian subcontinent can be set aside. It is also attractive as a development economist to me to see that when the full-fledged regional cooperation through the aegis of SAARC or even BIMSTEC is not immediately possible, we tend to opt for second best recourses. And I think BBIN also offers that. The third important thing here is that this region, this sub-region, can be the gateway to Southeast Asia, a much more dynamic sub-region of the Asian continent. And a proactive BBIN agenda, I think, that lowers trade costs, boosts firm competitiveness at home, broadens the tradability of services, especially in energy and tourism, invests in physical infrastructure to connect our major centers of commerce, and that aids people-to-people mobility is really the agenda that we should be working on. Now, I had the good fortune in my earlier incarnation as a researcher, as a senior economist at the World Bank, we actually, rather than talking about the macro topics, really dive deep into a common area that India, Nepal, and Bangladesh share. So we looked at price, employment, and production data. This is a 2014 paper that you can actually Google and download. It came out of the World Bank. So we took the two Nepali districts of Jhapa and Ilam, tea producing districts on our eastern border. We looked at Darjeeling and Uttar Dinajpur in India, and we looked at Bangladesh's Panchagad district. So we're trying to explore, is there a trade complementarity? If the current thickness of borders can be thinned or reduced, all the man-made or policy-induced barriers can be lessened, what can happen in an ideal scenario? And we came up with some fascinating numbers and projections. So complementarity between the Nepalese districts, Ilam and Jhapa, and the Indian district is lower than that between the Panchagad district of Bangladesh and the Indian districts of Darjeeling and Uttar Dinajpur. And this was through the product of rice, right? One is a consumer, one is a producer. And had the borders been more fluid, I think the consumers would have benefited a lot. Now, in our case, in the Nepal and India, There was some discussion on tea, on milk and meat and potato, and we're also tracking how the prices differed on each of these consumer items. So there's a significant price wedge we found between Nepali and Indian districts of up to 50% and up to 90% between Indian and Bangladeshi districts. And these wedges can indeed be thinned with policy, with infrastructure, and with the firm's enhancement of firms' productive capacity. So this is where the discussion around PTAs, the preferential trade agreements, comes into the fore. What can we do to give it a nudge, right? To these formal arrangements, to these legal architectures, to give that certainty to exporters and importers, the predictability of trade practices that a PTA enshrines would indeed be a way forward. Now, I do recognize Bangladesh was fortunate, even as an LDC, it became a default member of the WTO. Countries like Nepal and Cambodia have had to negotiate their accession into the WTO. And I remember in 2003, 2004, a lot of the tariffs we were required to lower by a vast margin. There's something called ODCs, other duties and charges, that Nepal was required to almost eliminate or eliminate with a time-bound schedule. But Bangladesh, having been an original WTO member, going back to its original membership of GATT as part of British India, actually, inherited many of that, the heavy margin on tariffs as well as ODCs. So I believe, it is politically sensitive when you undertake tariff and trade reforms, liberalization reforms. So a pragmatic way forward. We see the potentials. The two earlier speakers have already highlighted it. I think it would be wonderful to start with an early harvest scheme on the PTA. So identify those win-win products. It could be citrus fruits. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina herself took an interest in the import of yarn from Nepal, as the ambassador just said. So let's identify those 8 to 10 products, both on the Bangladeshi side and Nepali side. So before undertaking a full-blown PTA, we can perhaps start with an early harvest scheme that instills confidence, that assures traders and industries that are often clamoring for domestic protection, right? So I think that might be a way forward. At the same time, we reduce these policy-induced barriers through these preferential trade arrangements. I think investment in connectivity to cut costs, to spur growth, and to foster externalities is extremely important. We in Nepal are unfortunately landlocked, and it's a particular, very distinct development predicament. It is well known in the literature that if neighbors grow by 1%, economic growth rate is 1% in your contiguous regions, neighbors tend to grow by about 0.4%. But for landlocked countries like us, that ratio is almost 0.7%. So if neighbors' transit infrastructure improves from about 25th percentile to 75th percentile, almost half of that structural handicap associated with landlockedness just disappears. So therein lies the mathematical or the economic justification for much enhanced connectivity. Issues have been talked about. We were separated by a very, very tiny strip of land. And this is where I think our role of our bigger neighbor, India, becomes indispensable. Now, it is actually well acknowledged that bigger countries are often wary of smaller neighbors getting together and ganging up against the bigger power. This is not just true for India. It also applies to the former Soviet Union or Russia. The United States, obviously, during the Cold War years, it encouraged multilateralism, boosted multilateral institutions, etc. But after the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, it tended to go bilateral. And that you see, that parallel you see, this is a phenomenon associated with all rising powers, all big powers. So India, too, is very comfortable dealing with its neighbors on a one-on-one basis, on a bilateral basis. For it, sub-regionalism is an amalgamation of all these bilateral arrangements. Smaller countries, economically speaking, Nepal and Bangladesh, it's a different issue. We see sub-regionalism and regionalism as a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. And this sort of divergent preference on the part of smaller and bigger countries in our region needs to be reconciled. And how do we do that? I think the issue of trust becomes exceptionally important here. And trust begins through those early harvest schemes, through those low-hanging fruits, literally with the case of citrus fruits that we can export from Nepal to Bangladesh. But the example of yarn that was already shared, digitalization. Sometimes when my driver doesn't show up, I use Pathao in Kathmandu, and it's just taken the city by storm. It's become instantly popular, and I might note it's a Bangladeshi export, obviously. So it's these small gestures, because the volumes that we're talking about on trade is actually embarrassingly low. And we have to do better, we must do better, and really begin with that homework to ease these constraints, both man-made, policy-induced, and the geographical and the geopolitical constraints that we are well aware of. The second theme that I wanted to reinforce is, again, on the issue of clean energy. The previous speakers have already spoken on this, climate change, and the governance of regional commons. And this is where I think the climate change ties our fate together. The Himalayan glaciers are melting. The glacial lakes in the Himalayas pose immense threat to downstream settlements. There's the flooding, the weather patterns becoming erratic, the heat stress on labor productivity, health, crops, livestock, all this emerging evidence associated with climate change. I think fates of Bengali societies and Nepali societies are intricately linked. And the Himalayas are home to 10 major river systems of the world, both on the northern side and on the southern side, that support the livelihoods of almost 2 billion people. And we in Nepal are particularly vulnerable because of this elevation-dependent warming. If the rest of the world, the global temperature is rising by 1.5, you need to add another 0.3 degrees Celsius because of this phenomenon. And your riverine landscape, dozens of international rivers flowing through Bangladesh. I think this is all intricately linked. And so this is where the importance of cooling the climate, or at least stemming the warming of the planet, and moving to the non-carbon sources of energy becomes very, very important if we are to power growth and see tens of billions of our people aspiring to high middle income status. Now, every theory, every conceivable theory of how to hit net zero by 2050, which is a date that many countries have opted for, looks like this. You have to make electricity clean. You make much more clean electricity, and you make almost everything run on electricity. Let me say that again. Every theory of how to hit net zero by 2050 looks like this. You make electricity sources clean. You make much more electricity, much more clean electricity, and you make almost everything that we consume and use run on electricity. That's the magic formula. And herein lies, given Bangladesh's aspirations to become a high-income society over the next 20, 30 years, and Nepal's resources, especially on clean energy, there's a vast potential to trade and do joint collaboration. And there's been enough or abundant discussion around this topic. I remember Ambassador Masfi Bentilsans, when she was in Nepal, took great interest in this. And I understand from the ambassador to Bangladesh, the Nepali ambassador to Bangladesh, that there are 3 projects where there might be potential. Again, thinking in terms of that low-hanging fruit or that early harvest. Just recently, a few months ago, the power secretaries of both countries have agreed to import about 50 megawatts of clean energy from Nepal. But this needs, given Nepal and Bangladesh are not contiguous, the cooperation of India, and India itself is also very positive on this. There's this big hydro project, Sunkoshi 3rd, 683 megawatt Sunkoshi project, which could be jointly undertaken. And a preliminary environmental assessment has been undertaken on this. And something that I facilitated when I was in government in 2014, the Upper Karnali hydro project, 900 megawatts, initially destined for export to India. The developer, the GMR, has been negotiating with its Bangladeshi clients to export more than 50% of that energy to Bangladesh. I hope we make fast progress on these issues so that it sets a precedence for much more deeper cooperation in these areas. There's a parallel forum that I'm affiliated with. It's convened by the World Bank on the power secretaries, sort of informal track 2 kind of modalities. There too, we've been looking at hindrances and nudging, particularly our Indian friends, to allow Bhutanese, Nepali clean energy to flow into neighboring countries where there's massive demand, and eventually think of a sub-regional electricity grid. So this is a highly promising area because we need clean energy to power our growth aspirations, but it is also becoming now indispensable to solve or do our part to combat climate change and address this challenge of our regional commons. The final point, which the previous speakers have already spoken on, and let me just reinforce, the exercise of soft power through people-to-people links. So tourism, obviously, again, vastly undertapped. You are a country of 170 million. I checked that close to 3 million Bangladeshis travel abroad as outgoing tourists. And again, only 20,000 of Bangladeshis from such a populous country visit Nepal, which is beautiful, which is cool. So when you need to run away from the heat in the summer, I think the cool hill stations of Nepal are there to welcome you. And we see tourism, especially ecotourism, as one of our sources, like clean energy, a source of our future development milestone. And we would like to do much more in this area. The connectivity, which is much more frequent than what I used to see in the past, through Himalayan Airlines and Biman, flying much more regularly now is a start. But if we can operationalize the motor vehicles agreement, and maybe again, look at that, carve out that early harvest there through passenger traffic. So if the cargo traffic is engendering some anxiety on the smaller neighbors like Bhutan and Nepal, why don't we start with the passenger vehicle movement? And Bangladesh is driving into Nepal quite easily, and Nepal is also coming down to Bangladesh. That reciprocity would, I think, set the stage for larger volumes of inbound and outbound tourist flows. Academic exchange, which is, again, so many of my friends were trained in Bangladesh, very competent medical doctors now, professionals. I think that is ongoing. We can deepen that perhaps. Cultural exchange is happening, but we could do a lot more there. And the civil society track too is, I must note, as somebody who is part of this ecosystem, is exceptionally vibrant. So think tanks like my own, IIDS, SOTI from the Nepali side, and think tanks like BIISS and CPD and BIDS, it's a long association that we've been having. And this process is actually often gets sidelined in terms of official discourses, but it does a lot to tie researchers, academics, and advocates to work together on common issues. And there are plenty of common issues that we need to work on going forward. LDC graduation is one. We have a common date, November 2026, when both Bangladesh and Nepal are seeking to graduate out of LDC status. There are anxieties again on both sides. There are lobbies on your side as well as in our country to really look into this deeply. And this is where I think shared experiences on the policy minutiae of these complicated issues would go a long way in allaying fears, but also looking at the new opportunities that might come as we cross this development threshold. SAARC headquarters is based in Kathmandu. There's a lot that we can do. Indeed, many people recognize that this was a Bangladeshi and a Nepali sort of initiative. And there's a lot that ought to be done. Headquarters is here in Dhaka. And so there's a lot that we could do on the regional organization front. So let me end by returning to my earlier question. What would it take for Nepal and Bangladesh to become each other's +1 in South Asia? That's the key question. And the three sets of issues that I highlighted on trade and economic cooperation, development cooperation, on the climate change and clean energy, and the exercise of soft power through deeper people-to-people ties. I think therein lies and the answer, or a sets of answers or sequence of answers. And so building on this stable and mutually respectful relationship of 50 years, Here's to imagining a Bangla-Nepali vision of shared peace, progress, and prosperity for our generation, for the next 50 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wagle, for sharing your in-depth views. Now, I humbly request Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams, Rector, Foreign Service Academy, Bangladesh, to share her presentation. Ambassador Shams, please.
Just said the last slide. Okay, I'll start. I'll start. Honorable Foreign Minister, Chief Guest of today's seminar, Excellency Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, my respected old friend, Dr. Swarnam Wagle from Nepal, and Director General of BISS, distinguished audience, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, namaste. First of all, I would like to begin by thanking BIS for organizing this seminar, and I would also like to thank Ambassador Bhandari for thinking of organizing this seminar to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh-Nepal relations. And I would also like to thank both of them for inviting me to be to present or to share my views on Bangladesh-Nepal relations. It's indeed a great privilege to be here. I would like to, first of all, begin by paying my homage to our father of the nation on this month of our independence and on the month of his birth and on the month of the historic 7th March speech. I would also like to pay my deep homage to the sons and daughters of our liberation war, the martyrs, who laid down their lives and sacrificed their lives so that we could become an independent country. I would also like to pay my tribute to the martyred family members of our father of the nation. And I would also like to pay tribute to the people and the political leadership of Nepal who joined Bangladeshis, the Bengali people, in spirit and also extended material help to us during 1971. And we are indeed grateful to the moral support. It meant a lot to us in those days. And in recognition of that, in 2012 and 13, Bangladesh recognized 11 distinguished Nepali personalities as friends of Bangladesh. It was quite late to recognize them, but nevertheless, we took the step. My predecessors have spoken quite in detail about the Bangladesh-Nepal relations and what is the present status. And Dr. Wagle has also identified 3 major areas of cooperation or 3 major themes on which we can further build our relationship. Let me just outline where Bangladesh feels, where Nepal stands in our relationship with Nepal. Bangladesh, as you know, we have a vibrant foreign policy of friendship to all, malice to none, as laid out by our father of the nation. And also, as enunciated by our father of the nation, way back in 1972, in February, he in fact said that Bangladesh wants that the entire South Asian neighborhood should develop together, that Bangladesh wants to develop taking all its neighbors together. So the vision of Bangabandhu was there that Bangladesh would work with its neighbors. And this policy of enhanced cooperation with the neighbors has been consistently followed by our Honorable Prime Minister. Under her dynamic leadership, we have seen our relations with our all our neighbors develop and strengthen particularly since 2009. And we were greatly honored in 2021 when we were celebrating Mujib Chirantan from March 17 to March 27. 5 heads of states and governments from the region, including President Vida Devi Bhandari from Nepal, joined us and to celebrate the 50 years, the golden jubilee of the independence of Bangladesh and the birth centenary of our father of the nation. So they paid their tribute, they paid their respect to our father of the nation, and they expressed solidarity with Bangladesh. So that meant so much to us, and it meant that our neighborhood policy was actually, our neighborhood policy was being reciprocated by our neighbors. Now the neighbors, the close neighbors are, we are all geographically contiguous. We share common rivers, we share common ecosystems, and we share historical, cultural, linguistic, ethnic, and religious ties. And often these ties are, they also often dictate our domestic or influence our domestic policies. That's a fact of life when you're dealing with the neighbors. These relationships are dynamic and they are always evolving. When it comes to Nepal, as Dr. Wagle has pointed out, and also our ambassador has pointed out, the relationship between Bangladesh and Nepal predates our independence. In fact, way back, as early as the 11th century, a scholar from Bikrampur, Atish Dipankara, traveled to Nepal on his way to Tibet, where he was going for teaching the teachings of Lord Buddha. He stayed for quite some time in Kathmandu, spent some time in Kathmandu, and also in Upper Mushtang. So that's where our historical linkage lies. The language, the earliest written script of Bangla, the Charyapadas, actually were found in the archives of Nepal, of Kathmandu, and they are still in the archives of Kathmandu. So that's how old our relationship is. And over the years, this relationship has blossomed and it has strengthened into the status where it is today. I will not go into detail about the various issues on our bilateral agenda, but I would like to share some of my experience out of my 7 years in Nepal. I was there from 2013 to 2020. How things can change over the years. When I went there, our bilateral trade from Nepal, we were importing around 40 million plus products, mainly pulses. And we were exporting only $10 million worth of goods, raw jute mainly. And then, maybe because I went there or something, within 2015, it changed and it expanded to $47 million. And we were exporting very non-traditional items like motorcycles, furniture, pharmaceuticals, electronic products, food items. These are items that we don't normally export to any country. So we were exporting those. So the potential is very much there and the market is very much there. And unfortunately, from 1972 to 2014, our exports to Nepal was stagnant. It was only $10 million and it started changing. And out of 40 countries that Nepal traded with, Bangladesh was the only country with which Nepal had a trade surplus, and it was okay. It was not disturbing us. And even in that time, we offered to Nepal a PTA. We offered Nepali products duty-free, quota-free access to our market because we felt that both our countries would benefit from there. We are still discussing the PTA, unfortunately, and we have not been able to come to a concrete understanding. But the good news is that the ODC, the other duties and charges, Bangladesh is willing to be flexible about it. And we only need to, the officials actually have to sit down and work out the details. I can assure our Nepali side that if we do sit down, things will be moving ahead. The two sides have established the commerce secretary level talks and a joint group of customs officials to work on further, working out the trade and the non-tariff barriers, identifying non-tariff barriers and trying to ease the restrictions, the perceived restrictions to trade of both the countries. Connectivity, as has been pointed out, remains a major issue for us. But I think Bangladesh, India, and Nepal have relatively worked out the means of this using the Banglabandha, Fulbari Banglabandha Panitanki Kakurvita corridor, and it's being followed quite smoothly. And since immigration has been introduced in the Fulbari Banglabandha side, I think it's quite easy for the traders to move their goods and products. And also the rail transit has been there. Yet now we have two rail interchanges with Birol Radhikapur and Rohanpur Singhabad is there. And the two sides are also talking about establishing air connectivity, not only between Dhaka and Kathmandu, but also regional between Saidpur and Bhadrapur and Biratnagar. So that will really, target some specific regional segments and they can facilitate. But the biggest connectivity challenge that we have is the connectivity of the minds. First, we need to connect the minds of the people. And that's where I found that there was a lot of, there was a lot of work still needs to be done for us to connect together. We have talked about our trade. Our two sides signed an MOU for cooperation in 2018, and we have formed a joint steering group and joint working group under that. And hopefully things will be moving ahead in that area since Bangladesh is looking for green, clean, renewable sources of energy to fuel her high economic growth. And the Nepalese hydropower sector is the best source, could be the best source in this regard. So I can see, I can see only cooperation in this regard. I mean, there's no reason why we should not be able to move ahead on that. If we talk of cultural exchange, there's a vibrant cultural exchange going on between the two sides. And after many years, during the visit of Right Honorable President of Nepal, our two sides signed a cultural exchange program. But even before that, even without that, there's a lot of artist exchange going on. Cultural groups are going visiting each other's countries. Singers, dancers, painters. The Nepal Academy, which is the counterpart of our Bangla Academy, the two premier institutions working to promote and preserve languages, they have signed an MOU on cooperation. Also, the Nepal Academy of Fine Arts and the Shilpa Kala Academy also have a similar MOU on cooperation. And the think tanks, there's also collaboration between the think tanks. BIISS has also signed an MOU with the Nepal Council of World Affairs. So there have been a couple of exchanges between them, but maybe there's a need to make it more robust. One area that we did none of the speakers have touched upon is the defense cooperation. So defense is one area where, because we are both, large, contributing to the peacekeeping of the UN peacekeeping missions, Bangladesh and Nepal have a vibrant defense exchange. The chiefs of the two countries have been regularly exchanging visits, and there's a regular exchange of defense delegations, both, and also trainees from NDC and staff college level, also for short courses. And so this defense cooperation is a really robust mechanism for enhancing and strengthening the relationship. And I saw this example, I saw the best example of this during the 2015 earthquake. The two chiefs of army staff, they were very close friends, and they had done their staff college together somewhere. So anyway, the Nepali army chief was calling up our army chief whenever he needed something, and the army chief was, just putting things in a C-130 and sending it to Nepal. So that's the way, actually, how the relationship should be. There should be no formal channels. Of course, formal channels are important, but that is the way we should be operating. One picking up the phone whenever there is a need, and we can collaborate whenever there's a need to collaborate. During the time of COVID also, we have seen that we can cooperate in many ways out of the box. We shared whatever we had. We tried to share with our neighbors, including with Nepal, medical equipment, pharmaceutical items, vaccines, whatever we had, we tried to share with our friends. And Nepal has also, shared whatever they could with us. In this section, I would just like to end here. I always used to tell Nepali people that why they should be paying more attention to Bangladesh, because I could feel that also I see it in our Bangladesh also. Both the countries, we are similar in size, we have similar development challenges, we have similar attitudes, and we have similar preoccupations. And we are, in the foreign ministry, both the foreign ministries are preoccupied with the major powers or with bigger neighbors, and we are always constantly challenged to meet the latest crisis. So who has the time to talk or work with the smaller neighbors? Right? But as Dr. Bhagle has pointed out, perhaps the smaller neighbors can form a partnership. And Bangladesh, with its rapidly growing economy, can be not only a huge market for Nepali products, it can also be a very cheap and alternative source of products for Nepali importers. Nepal is it's a largely import-dependent country. They are importing around $12–13 billion worth of goods from all over the world, and out of that, only 100 million is going from Bangladesh. So it's it's not even scratching the surface. There is so much more that they can source from us. To be, at quality products at an affordable price. Also, Bangladesh, as has been pointed out, a lot of Nepali students are studying in Bangladesh in the many public and private institutions in undergraduate and postgraduate levels. And so it's, why are these students coming here? And we are very happy to welcome them. So there should be some area why the Nepal could be interested to see why so many students are coming here, and they can pay a little bit more attention to Bangladesh in this regard. Bangladesh can also offer itself as a base for investors from Nepal to invest, and from here they can export to third countries, or it's the gateway. Bangladesh is so uniquely positioned. It's at the hub of South and Southeast Asia. It's connecting the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal, and it's right there in the center. And it has offered itself. The ports of Mongla, Chittagong, Paira, and when Matarbari Deep Sea Port comes into effect, Nepal can also use that. And with all the infrastructure development that is going on in Bangladesh, connectivity is not, is no longer a challenge in Bangladesh, at least. And in the way forward, so how do we move ahead? We have huge political goodwill. That much is, evident. We have high-level exchange of visits. Our Honorable Prime Minister has always expressed a keenness to develop relations with Nepal. But then how do we take this relationship forward? I think what we can do is, strengthen the institutional mechanisms, hold the Foreign Office consultations, which has not been held for a long time, regularly hold the Commerce Secretary and the Power Secretary level talks. The officials, they need to meet regularly. Then we need to foster communication exchanges between the parliamentarians, the lawmakers, the parliamentarians, people who can influence ideas or who can influence the political paths. Then I think that the business communities must engage more. In Bangladesh, there is still an idea that Nepal is a small market, largely dominated by the Indians, and it will not be profitable to go to Nepal. But whenever, any Bangladeshi entrepreneur has ventured into Nepal, they have had extremely good experience, and they have expanded very quickly their operations. So I think the business chambers, the apex bodies should be exchanging more visits, or they should be exchanging more information, because there is hardly any information known about between the two countries. Regarding tourism, we have said so much, but I really think that Nepal could be doing a lot more road shows to attract people from Bangladesh. And finally, because we have the common agenda, the common aspirations, Nepal and Bangladesh must work together in the regional and in the multilateral fora. Regionally, as the headquarters of SAARC, and Bangladesh is the secretariat of BIMSTEC, the two capitals can really collaborate to strengthen regional integration and regional cooperation and drive the region forward. Sub-regionally, of course, BVIN was floated quite a long time ago. The progress is frustratingly slow, but we remain optimistic because it makes so much sense. And in the multilateral fora, there are so many areas where we can work together in development financing, in climate change. Both are members of the CEF. In migration, both Nepal and Bangladesh are labor sending countries. So there we can work together. We are both members of the Colombo process, and we can also collaborate in other areas, such as in the UN peacekeeping, because we are both sending countries. So in multilateral fora also, we must work together. So working together collectively for our peace, progress, and prosperity for the next 50 years and beyond, I think it's a very achievable target, if only we manage to pay a little bit more attention to each other. So thank you all for your attention. Jai Bangla.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your experience of working in Bangladesh-Nepal relations and also your insights for a way forward in this bilateral relation. Now, with the permission of the chief guest, I would like to invite our respected audience to participate in the open discussion session. Please raise your hands if you have any queries and comments. Our respected Director General, sir, will take your questions and direct it to the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. due to time constraint, probably we shall have enough time to take at least 4 to 5 questions. So let's set the agenda. We shall take 4 questions from the house and 1 question, if there is any, from the Zoom session. So you can select or direct your question to your desired respondent. Ambassador Handan, please, sir.
Thank you. And I must thank all the speakers for wonderful presentations, and it's very, I must say, very comprehensive. And given the tenor of the speakers' deliberations, I found that there is an inertia of mindset not to move ahead in the direction with its true potential. And there are some communities came, what I understood that India +1, I think Bangladesh and Nepal both understand this process very well. And our father of the nation also clearly made a clarion call that we must grow together, otherwise our posterity will not forgive us. And third, our trade situation, as the Nepalese friend mentioned, it is embarrassingly low. So we have passed 50 years, or we call friendship. We cherish it. But is it true to its potential? No. Is it the time that the 2 countries, Nepal and Bangladesh, believes in multilateralism, believes in regional cooperation, and believes in to be a rich country, developed economy by Bangladesh for 41 and India for Nepal for 43. Is it not the time to think of leaving PTA aside, think of an FTA, and go for a huge, I must say, cooperation for tourism purpose with joint ventures, either in Nepal or in Bangladesh? And I believe that this is the only way we can think of doing justice to the aspirations of the peoples of the 2 countries. Thank you.
Next question, Mr. Salahuddin.
Thank you very much. This is Salahuddin Ahmed. I was a member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission, and I was also a television news host, university faculty, and banker. I was overwhelmed by the simile that Dr. Wagley mentioned, that Nepal-Bangladesh relation is like the Himalayas is linked with the Bay of Bengal. It's just magical simile that you brought in. And also Ambassador Shams Mashfi Appa, she mentioned that she also mentioned of a simile that only two chiefs of 2 armies spoke, and a significant assistance was sent to Nepal. So easy, so simple it can be made if we, of course, like, putting aside the red tapes and other things. And the activities and attitude can be reciprocated, and we can all see it very easily. And only then the low-lying fruits that you mentioned will not remain as the grapes are sour. So we'll have to have that attitude first and be a good neighbor. Lastly, I mention of some organizations you brought as examples, like BIISS and IIDS, Shilpokala Academy, and as Mashfiapa mentioned. These can also be very easily come together and start working, as I said, putting aside the red tapes. Honorable Minister will probably assure us about that. Thank you very much. Please.
Please go on.
You,
Just a minute.
I'm Mahbub. I'm the former ambassador. I had a distinction of also working as the Secretary Asian Pacific. So if I can clearly remember, in 2018, Mashfi will also attest to that, we went to Nepal, and we know that Lumbini is the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. We had gone there, and they were very ecstatic, and they had agreed to give a plot of land for us. And we extensively toured around the city. And then we found that many other Buddhist practicing countries are also established their mausoleum and also their monuments over there. And also Mashfi also steered this thing much forward in a progressive manner. I don't know what has happened to that, but it is one of the concrete examples that we can have cooperation with. And of course, as you have mentioned, that first is economic and trade. Second is clean energy, and of course, then we can have soft power, cooperation. So just I would like to harp on like migration. Migration can be a win-win situation, and we know that like Abhijit Banerjee in his book Good Economics for Hard Times, he has clearly said that unlike contrary to the belief that migration is bad, it can have a positive impact on the world, on the economy, and it can also have a positive impact on the wages and also create job and employment opportunities. So I think I will leave it at that, because the time constraints. Thank you.
My name is Gunjan Lallakoti. I'm head of program Bangladesh. I'm working in Ireland, Nepali by the way. So one key question that I have is, when you talk about thick borders that Dr. Wagle touched upon, has there been any effort bilaterally between Bangladesh and Nepal to thin that thick border that we have?
Thank you very much. Okay, last one in that case. Do you have anyone on the on Zoom platform to ask questions? I think there is none on Zoom. So please, you go ahead.
From the University of Jahangirnagar University, Department of International Relations. My question is, I have many questions actually, but then my question is, Dr. Wagle, he mentioned about one thing, that is there is a tendency among the small powers to gang against the regional power. This is not right. You see, I have done my PhD on regional power. India's role as a regional power in South Asia, and the response of Pakistan and of Bangladesh. I did my PhD. Nowhere in the world have the small powers ganged up against the regional power. You see. So in case of South Asia, the question doesn't arise at all. The geographical location, you see, one is dispersed. No one shares common borders. You see. So there is no question. Now, you see, it is the Indian peculiar psyche toward the small states. See, I mean, you like it or not. India, I don't know why India is afraid of the small states. The reasons are there. If so, taking this, I don't want to go into the details. My question is that now, Mr. Wagne also talked about sub-regional cooperation. Okay, very, very good. SALT is a dead horse. We know it cannot work anymore. Now, then what happened to SAGQ? It's a South Asian Growth Quadrennial, which was wrote some years back when I was in BIS, sir. Sir, I'm from BIS. I'm ex-district director of BIS. And then what happened to BBIN? Nothing. What happened to our promise to give your excellency, your country, the port facility, Mangla port facility? Nothing. What happened to our project, plan to import hydroelectricity from Nepal? What happened? Nothing. What happened to MBA? Nothing. Be mistake. Well, it's still living, It's fine. Let's see what happens in the future. So you have to see, you have to, economic cooperation, believing in the United Nations Charter, human rights. These are the normal things of international intercourse. It's not really any country, even with the enemy, you talk about the believing in the peace and prosperity, world peace, stability, human rights, etc. Now my question is that, where lies the problem? Why have not these projects been materialized? For example, our plan to import electricity from Nepal, your plan to use our Mongla facilities, okay? And the road that you have mentioned, Bangla Bandhan, something, it is just operational. I don't know, it was planned long time back, but then it's just operational, I think, few years, few months back, So I just want to know from you, what went wrong on the way? Why haven't we been able to realize this? HATQ, BBIN, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I shall allow the speakers to respond now. Mr. Wagle, you can take the floor.
Thank you very much for those interesting questions. On the first one, on the inertia, it's the issue of mindset and whether we can envision a more ambitious arrangement, not just focus on PTA, but can we go into a more elaborate? It's more of a textbook kind of a continuum, right? You start with a PTA, you go to a FTA, maybe you do an EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement, then even a customs union with a shared external tariff. But I find that that model that worked for, let's say, the European Union may not be directly applicable here. But it's also an issue of nomenclature. It doesn't matter what you name the arrangement, as long as you make it very comprehensive. So obviously digitalization, trade in services is becoming very important. So PTA is from an era when merchandise trade was dominant. Now a lot of the services are becoming highly tradable. So you can easily bring that into the fold. So we can come up with our own name, Nepal Bangladesh Partnership Ambition or something like that. It's up to us to, but as long as we are clear on what we are covering, what are the terms, the sequencing, the liberalization and all that. So I would also be for a more ambitious thing, but given that the bar that we've set so far is so low and the trade numbers are indeed embarrassingly low, let's start with that early harvest, instill trust, generate some confidence, and then eventually gap. But we can announce a larger sort of a milestones, right? So maybe in 20 years' time, we would reach here. So I very much echo your sentiment, but we also need to be slightly practical and pragmatic, given that we are the level that we are at is quite low. But here too, I would like to be more optimistic. Both Bangladesh and Nepal were very poor, right? So your story of economic growth is the last 15, 20 years. Nepal is still much poorer, but we are also trying hard to catch up. So rather than looking at this scenario as a half empty situation, maybe it's a half full situation, and with a positive mindset, opening of our the inertia, the word that you used is very right. So I think let's look forward. On the issue of the similes that you mentioned, Mr. Salahuddin, here the aspects of, and I'm really glad that Ambassador Mashfi recalled that episode of earthquake cooperation. Indeed, disaster, the two countries could do much more on disaster preparedness. Right? You have been doing very well, but we know Bangladesh used to face these tragic natural calamities. Nepal is also vulnerable from other angles. And 2015 earthquake, when Bangladesh really came forth with that outpouring of support, solidarity, material, financial, human resource help, was really something to be commended for. And I was in government at the time, and I saw it firsthand. So this is an area, but we can possibly park it under that rubric of climate change, clean energy, regional commons, the disaster preparedness agenda can also be part of that. But I very much welcome your point that these unconventional areas beyond trade, beyond connectivity are also there to be recognized and built upon. Mr. Secretary, I think on Lumbini, the Buddhist plot of land, I will defer it to the ambassador to maybe respond on this, but this shouldn't be an issue, right? I think we very much welcome all friendly countries to have a presence in Lumbini. We have an ambition there to make it, to draw on another parallel of the Makkah of Buddhism, the peace university, the peace complex, where people from world over go to meditate and resolve conflicts. So we have that larger ambition to turn the birthplace of Lord Buddha into a global center. And we have just built an international airport there, hoping that even Bangladesh would be flying chartered planes and land it in Lumbini. So it's a new avenue that we've opened to the rest of the world. On migration remittances, again, this is possibly the terrain of think tanks, but there's a lot that we can learn from each other. And as a researcher myself, I used to look at the cases from Bangladesh on how remittance has been impacting the socio-economic transformation in this country, to see if there are parallels and what we could learn from countries like Bangladesh, like the Indian state of Kerala, like the Philippines, because we sort of caught on a little bit, but remittance has become a very dominant story in our development. Mr. Gunjanji talked about thinning of borders, G20, T20. Indeed, this is actually happening. So it may not be announced. There may not be too much fanfare around this, but I have actually participated in a few T20 kind of events. RIS, the Research and Information Systems, possibly an entity similar to BIISS in India, and IIDS, my own think tank that I chair, work quite closely together on these issues. And as I highlighted during my statement, there's a very vibrant track to civil society think tank cooperation, not mediated by the government. This is something that grew quite organically, that was engineered by the people involved themselves. So all the think tanks, notable think tanks in Bangladesh, have had some relationship with the influential think tanks in Nepal and the rest of South Asia. And just to give you an example, in September, Bangladesh will host a South Asian Economic Summit, which is basically a congregation of all the think tanks in South Asia. And this is something that began maybe 10, 15 years ago. We take a rotational practice of hosting these conferences. Maybe it was interrupted a little during COVID, but you will see in September that all these think tanks from across South Asia descending upon Dhaka to take part in these issues. This is something, sometimes the think tanks themselves want the government to stay away. Right? You don't want that official stamp, fearing that there will be interference, there will be censoring of ideas, etc. So I think this vibrant, independence, non-partisan kind of a network that has evolved in South Asia is something to be celebrated and nurtured. But obviously, there is always room to do more. Finally, the respected professor, maybe you misunderstood me a little bit. What I meant was the big countries might have this perception that when smaller countries surrounding them, raise this issue of sub-regional cooperation, regional cooperation, they might have this perception, the smaller countries, because on a bilateral engagement, the power difference is so asymmetric, right? When tiny Bhutan is negotiating with India, small Nepal is negotiating in India, it's too conspicuous, the asymmetry. And these bigger countries tend to have that perception that the reason we clamor for sub-regional cooperation, regional cooperation, that the multilateral institutions are needed much more by the weaker and the smaller countries, is this perception that the big countries think, oh, these tiny guys are getting together to gang up against us. Not that it matters to them, they are strong and big by definition, but it is just that perception that they might have. And I was just casually giving the example of the United States and India. My own sense is that does not need to be the case. And there have been enlightened big powers that have taken a very, very generous, very non-reciprocal stance with their immediate neighbors. And that is indeed the kind of relationship that we aspire to. But my larger point was, if there are those imagined or real perceptions on how big countries see smaller countries. The agenda to dilute those perceptions is through generation of trust, low-hanging fruits, these early harvest schemes where you start small with small wins to create a conducive environment for deeper engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagle. Quickly, I will go to Ambassador Bhandari, if you have to add something.
Thank you. Thank you. I think most of the questions have been responded very well by Dr. Wagle. So I would not go to the questions specifically one by one. And there was one particular question about Lumbini, which Ambassador Maspi Binte Sams, Madam has already volunteered to answer that. So broadly speaking about the issues, this is one of the tenets. Wherever I go, it has been about 7 months of my ambassadorship in Dhaka. Wherever I meet with, I always talk about Nepal-Bangladesh relationship being problem-free, trouble-free relationship. That was reflected in the presentations today and also in the questions. We all, 4 speakers, I'm sure Honorable Foreign Minister also will speak all on the same lines. 4 speakers who spoke as of now have almost somehow said the same thing. I mean, we have acknowledged that there are potentials. We have acknowledged that we have not done enough. And we have acknowledged that there is a need to move ahead and move ahead maybe with specific projects, a specific outcome in mind. And there was the question about NRC. I know Ambassador Hanan right from our Geneva Times. And of course, the question of NRC, I would maybe very politely disagree because Nepal and Bangladesh have so many things to talk about. Our cooperation has been ranging from one sector to the other. There are so many mechanisms, institutional arrangements that Ambassador Binte Sams was talking about. It's just that that economic partnership has to kickstart. That's why I was talking about at least 3-4 major areas: trade and investment, tourism, energy cooperation, and of course, BBIN and connectivity issues. So those are the areas that we are focusing on. If you go to agriculture, commerce, you go to tourism, you go to, of course, foreign ministry, all those lot of issues are covered under institutional mechanisms and they need to be activated. At times, because of this culture, because of the other issues such as the disasters, the earthquake was there in 2015 in Nepal, and of course, the pandemic, they find one or the other, the pretext, if I may use that word, to delay those mechanisms. That doesn't mean we have not been engaging and not discussing the issues. Having said this, this also reflects the enthusiasm, the willingness on the part of the governments and also the peoples. The closer the peoples are, the more connected they are, the higher the need for more robust partnership. The questions that have come from the floor, and of course, our own presentations have at least highlighted one common thing, that is, there's the desire, there's the willingness to enhance this partnership. So that is the evidence itself of how close and how connected we are. We would not expect, for example, this sort of question if you're talking about the relationship between Nepal and a faraway distant land country, any country for that matter. So that shows how much our peoples expect of our deliberations, which I very much appreciate, and we are very much willing to do more and have our engagements move forward with more concrete outcomes in mind. I would just like to conclude by thanking you all once again. As I said towards my concluding part of the statement, let's make this 50th anniversary a watershed moment. That is exactly what I said. Let us plan better for future. Let us go. At least if we can have 40-50 megawatt of electricity is nothing given Bangladesh's energy needs, but it would be of a tremendous symbolic importance between our bilateral relationship, but also for sub-regional cooperation. That's where we are focusing. And when we talk about trade, investment, energy, tourism, all those areas, connectivity, I find that Nepal and Bangladesh are more or less on the same pace. We don't have differences. And we all know where the challenges lie. And I hope those challenges will be worked out and we'll be able to solve them. and achieve some concrete outcomes when we talk about next 10, 15 or 20 years of Nepal-Bangladesh relationship. So thank you all once again. Thank you, Honorable Foreign Minister, for your time, and all esteemed speakers. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Bhandari. Ambassador Mashfi, please.
Thank you. I will just take 1 minute. Regarding Lumbini, we did sign the MOU with Lumbini Development Trust in 2021, and I think our side is now finalizing the project to start building the monastery there. Of course, with the present austerity measures going on, I'm not very sure how quickly we will be able to start the project. However, everything is now finalized. We do have our plot of land, the MOU has been signed, and we can start work whenever we are ready. So in Lumbini, Bangladesh will definitely have its presence there. And on the other side, everybody has talked so much in detail. I just want to request everybody to put things in perspective. When we talk of Bangladesh-Nepal relations, Bangladesh, don't forget that Bangladesh is a young country. 50 years is nothing. And out of that, 21 years, we were, I don't know, in political wilderness. And it's only recently, since 2009 that we have really started focusing on enhancing and strengthening our relations with our neighbors. And again, I would just like to remind you that, we do have other preoccupations, unfortunately, because of our human resources constraints. They sometimes distract us from focusing on meaningful engagement with our smaller neighbors. Nepal also has been going through a long transition. So let us also give them some space and time so that whenever they are comfortable and they are able to, they feel that they are ready, we will be, everything is set. So whenever they are ready, they can come and we can take the relationship to the next level. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Aisha, you can resume. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, respected audience, for your active participation, and thank you, distinguished speakers, for your responses. Now, may I have the honor to request the chief guest of today's seminar, His Excellency, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, MP, Honorable Foreign Minister, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, to share his valuable speech in this August gathering. Your Excellency, sir.
His Excellency, Mr. Gyansham Bhandari, Ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams, Rector, Foreign Service Academy, Dr. Sarnim Wagel, Chair, the Institute for Integrated Development Studies, Kathmandu, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin. He has many degrees, and I thought I should let you know. He has OSP, means Oshadaran Seva Padak, SGP, Senagourav Padak, BMS, Bangladesh Ansar Nagorik Seva. He got all the awards. And of course, the Armed Forces War Course, completion, passport, past staff course. So we got a very, mature and a very, Director General, and we are very happy. Esteemed guest, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I have a pretty long speech, but you have been hearing all the speeches for hours. So maybe I should overlook my speech. But I must thank basically the Bangladesh Institute of International Strategic Studies and the Embassy of Nepal for organizing this very special event to celebrate the 50th year of Bangladesh-Nepal friendship, a shared vision for peace, progress, and prosperity. It was truly
the educating and illuminating to listen to so many people. And maybe BIS can come up with, after all the discussion, can come up with some action-oriented recommendations so that we can move from there. Distinguished audience, on this very month, the month of March is a very special month. You all know, on this month, on the 7th of March, we have the historical speech. On 17th March, our father of the nation, Bangladesh, was born. That's his birthday. 25th March, when genocide started in then East Pakistan. And 26th March, when Bangladesh declared the independence of Bangladesh. So month of March is very close to our heart. And in this very special month, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary. And I'm so pleased to be here. And we're celebrating the 50th anniversary. This started last year. Nepal is our neighbor. Just one after the victory of Bangladesh on 16th December, one month after, Nepal recognized Bangladesh as the independent and sovereign country. And we are thankful to them. No wonder recently, last year, we have awarded 11 distinguished Nepali personalities with our highest order, Friends of Bangladesh. And this is in 2012 and 13. So we try to remember them. Until today, we are indebted to them. Relationship with Nepal and Bangladesh is pretty solid. But as you said, this relationship should have been enhanced and more strengthened. I'm happy that in 2021, when we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of independence of Bangladesh and the 100th anniversary of Father of the Nation, Nepali president visited Bangladesh. And our prime minister at the time, while she was talking to all the South Asian leaders, she had one story she told. She did not ask them to help Bangladesh. She only said that Bangladesh is doing well. We have achieved relatively pretty good progress. From a 90 billion economy, we have got $465 billion economy now. She was telling that our GDP growth rate was significant. Our per capita income has increased. In the areas of social indicators, we did pretty well. But she said these will not be sustainable unless the whole region prospered together. She, in fact, was promoting the concept of shared development and prosperity. So we will look forward that we should have a shared prosperity. The prosperity of only one nation may not be very sustainable unless we put little more emphasis on shared prosperity. In this area, how far we did. First, I would like to say the enhanced cooperation. And I feel pretty awkward that we are trying to develop good relations with all our neighbors. My wish is that we should have visa-free travel within this whole region. Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Bhutan, why not? We have similar situations. Maybe we should do away with the visa requirement, and that could reflect that we are good friends and we can do. The other case is Nepal and Bangladesh is very close. Their size is as large as ours, almost similar. And their population, of course, much less. We have 170 million, they have around 30 million. Many things of Nepal is similar to us. But we both are graduating by 2026. So this is an area where we can work together. Yeah, I was attending the LDC 5 the other day, and the message we have been forwarding is the graduation must not be punished. You achieve some success, and therefore you should be rewarded. But unfortunately, way things are designed, if you graduate, that you were successful, then you are supposed to be punished. That should not be the way out. And here, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Laos, and others, those are graduating. We should take a stand and try to see a way out that graduation must not be a punishment. It should not be. Because the day you graduate, you will be losing a lot of benefits that you used to receive. And we can work together in this area so that we can achieve our goals, particularly in the area of IP, for example, which is an unknown area. We are doing well, and we will be sustainable. No, but our other neighbors should also do. This is really unfortunate. Over the last 50 years, the current, only few of them graduated from LDC. During the last 11 years, only 3 graduated, although the plan was during the LDC Support Summit in Istanbul. We hope that out of the total LDC at the time, 48, we hope that 24 would graduate. But it's a dismal situation. Only 3 graduated and few others in the process. That means, that to me is basically the international mechanism and the trade regime that are in place, supposed to help LDCs to graduate, are not working. We should make a big noise about it, that though there should be a change in those areas. Now here, Bangladesh, as per IMF report, is the 35th largest economy. And as I said, our economy is doing pretty well. And as the economy is doing well, more and more scope is coming up. And we are hoping that by 2041, we will be a developed country, a smart Bangladesh. We would like to have smart people, smart Bangladesh, mass productive capacities, smart, the students. And in this area, we are trying pretty hard. But we would like, Nepal should also come forward. We can share our expertise in the IT sector with Nepal. And we would like Nepal to come forward with the energy supply. Recently, as I understand, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal is building one power plant, a small power plant, only 50 megawatt worth. These 3 countries, but unfortunately taking too much time. Maybe I should go along with Ambassador Hannan. It is time to change the mindset. It is essential to change the mindset and forget about the, our practice of inertia. We should move faster. Even I don't understand why we could not come up with FTA or PTA. PTA or FTA, nothing has come so far, although we have been trying for years. It is time to move faster. Faster not only for us, it is for the whole of the region. We are lucky that under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, we did in many areas, I should say, miracle. We have built our own metro rail. We have developed our Podda bridge with our own money. This talks about courage. We also developed, it's almost finished, our underground tunnel, first in the South Asia, I'm told. Somebody has to verify it. So we did because there is a good leadership. And the leadership had the courage to take decisions. Maybe it is time that we ask our neighbors that they should also take, big steps. And if we can do, only then we will be, because I'm looking not last 50 years, I would like to look forward next 50 years. And next 50 years, there is so much of potential. He was an untapped, who said untapped, potential. I agree with them. Because I think in the area of energy, there is plenty of scope. I think in the area of tourism, we have plenty, as Mr. Wagal said, plenty of scope. We have in Nepal is known for many religious stupa and all those. And in Bangladesh, we do have varieties of, even in my own town, Sylhet, That's why we have the Guru Nath stupa. You see, and Guru Nath earned a name, not religion came and in Nepal and later. So we are not promoting any of those. Maybe it is time that we promote it. I'm so thankful that Ambassador Nashbi also mentioned, and our Ambassador Mahbub also mentioned, that we are building a monastery in the Lumbini, right? And this is good, so people can go. So this is, tourism is a big area where we have to realize the untapped potentials and two-way relations. Once the visa is withdrawn, once our road, BBN is not working very well, it should be operative. We should have road, air, connectivity. We have offered Nepal our port facility, yet the total trade is very low. It is only 110 million. This is sad. It should be 5-6 times more. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think we do have scope for them, provided we work harder, provided we have a mindset, provided we are sincere. We don't create bottlenecks and roadblocks across the nation. I would ask the ambassador that he please, look into these so that we can help increase our two-way trade and recommend them to have either initially maybe PTA, then go for FTA very soon, because those could help us to increase our two-way trade. We have very good arrangement in the IT sector. We would like to share our IT with Nepal. We have, in the last COVID time, we did share even the COVID vaccine with Nepal. And we have so much of scope. When Nepal find difficulty to get their goods in Nepal, we allow our Saidpur airport for all the relief works, you see. I understand in the area of education, currently we are hosting many students from Nepal, mostly in the medical education, but this should be in other areas also. Why not in engineering? Why not in other sectors? We have plenty of universities, and we will even welcome Nepalese students to our universities and schools. Maybe ambassador can take an initiative so that I don't like to see only 10, 20. I would like to see 200, 2,000, 3,000 Nepalese students studying here, and they could be our ambassador in the process. So this is another area I thought we should work out. And I think the BBN, with the support of Nepal, we can push for BBN to be more operative. I was told the BIMSTEC and SARC. I don't know about SARC much, but I think with the Nepal push and our push, we can achieve some goals in the BIMSTEC area. Anyway, I have said the same to our Lao PDR, that we must work together so that our graduations must not be a punishment. And we should work very strongly. And another area which Ambassador Mahmood mentioned about migration. And this is an important issue, and it is also should be close to the Nepalese government. So in this area, we agree to have the regulated orderly migration. And I would expect Nepal to come forward and see how we can work together in this area. And following the dream of our father of the nation, the great leader of the region, if we can work together, we may ensure Sonar Bangla in Bangladesh and our neighbors like Nepal for ensuring a prosperous region. Following the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, we are confident that if we can work together in the spirit of friendship, we may ensure a peaceful region as a whole. We believe regional peace and stability is essential for sustainable peace and our growth trajectory. Finally, once again, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this seminar. I'm confident that this type of seminars will provide an excellent opportunity, as I have seen today, for all of us to exchange ideas, share experience, and explore. I'm very thankful that it was very, I should say, enlightened discussions. I learned so many things, and our Mashi was there for many years. She had the, experience right on the ground, and therefore we are all benefited. I wish you all good luck. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu. May Bangladesh-Nepal friendship continue to grow and last forever.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for highlighting the shared vision of peace, progress, and prosperity. As our Foreign Minister just said, we believe that the friendship between Bangladesh and Nepal shall only become stronger and multifaceted in the years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come towards the end of today's seminar. I would like to request Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General BIISS, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Thank you, Aisha. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our today's seminar. Again, I express my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, MP, for sparing his valuable time and also for his seminal speech. Also, I would like to convey my thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Ghanshyam Bhandari for your valuable inputs. Also, my special thanks to the distinguished speakers, Ambassador Mashfi and Mr. Wagle, for enlightening us about different aspects of Bangladesh-Nepal bilateral relationship. Hope our policymakers will find significant directions from our today's deliberations to move forward and enhance the relationship between our two friendly countries. South Asia is one of the least connected regions in the world. Therefore, regional and sub-regional platforms could work as lifeline for development aspirations of the countries in this region. As a result, bilateral relationship will also be cemented based on common interests generated through those platforms. Bangladesh and Nepal should focus more on connectivity and explore new avenues of cooperation, as well as tap the maximum mutual benefits from the existing architecture of bilateral relations and partnerships. Before I conclude, I would just touch upon 3 points. One is we have our next seminar on 15th of this month after 3 days, which will be on gig economy and Bangladesh, opportunities, challenges, and way forward. I invite you all to join in that seminar. Next is as our Honorable Chief Guest has expressed his desire to get the outcome of this seminar. So, after every seminar, we publish the proceedings, which include the important aspects mentioned by all the speakers, and that will also have the recommendations. So the proceedings will be printed. And third and last, you all are welcome to join us for light refreshment after this. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz, Joy Bangla.